Hello everyone, thank you for watching this video. Another question that I will answer, it's related to the first part of the global method security video I have uploaded some days ago. And the question is, in which scenario should we use the method security approach? If we use this approach together with the standard way MVC matcher, how can that influence the responsive time? So let's split this question into two. First of all, in which scenario should you use the security method approach? So you can use actually both of the approaches together or separately. Well, as a framework, Spring offers you the possibility, Spring Security in this case offers you the possibility to secure not only directly the endpoints, which actually means by the overriding of the configure method, the way I have shown you in separate in other past videos, where you can simply use, as you have specified in the question, also the MVC or the ANT matchers, and you can simply cover the access just to make some rules in which, and that's really important, the endpoint action is not called at all. So what happens if you configure it here is that the endpoint, your method, is not called at all based on the URL or on the HTTP method that you specify, or both of them. You define some rules, and based on them your endpoint action could be or couldn't be called at all. But there are situations in which, for example, you would like to do something when a call is rejected, and then you want to not define the authorization at the endpoint level, but at the use case implementation level, which is actually the service class, for example. So you don't want to specify that one is not able to call your endpoint. You just want to specify that one is not able to access your use case. And in that case, maybe you would simply like that in a separate, only one call, you do multiple things, and some of them should happen also if the user doesn't respect some authentication rule. For example, you would like to log who has accessed that endpoint. It's just an idea. It could be many more depending on the business logic of the application, but you want to do something, you just want to disallow part of it, and then you would like your endpoint action actually to be called, and just the use case should be secured using some specific rule. Then also regarding this first part of the question, I have only shown you two annotations for the moment, which are the secured and the roles allowed annotation. Yeah, we have discussed, actually this is the project, and we have discussed about the secured enable and GSR 250 enable, which is actually the roles allowed. So we didn't discuss yet about the pre-post annotations. You will see that actually the pre-post annotations can do more things than you could do simply by just disabling the access to method. For example, the pre-filter and the post-filter annotations could be used just to filter the input and the output. And again, as I will show you, you can even use the syntax integrated with Spring Data directly, in which you don't want only to restrict access. So this is what I have done in the first part. And this is exactly what may be confusing, because I could do in a real life scenario that thing from here directly. So in most of the cases, probably you just want to simply secure an endpoint. So simply you don't want to allow anyone to access your action if they don't have a specific role, authority, and so on. So specific logic of authorization. And first of all, of course, would be that you have the situation in which you just want to restrict the access to the service call. But there is also more than you can do with the global method security that I haven't shown you yet, and that will come in the next parts of the global security method. For example, in which you don't want to restrict the access. You just want to make sure, for example, that only some logic is done based on who is authenticated. So for example, if you have a select in a database and you have a products table, and the products are owned by a user, you would like always, when a user calls the endpoint to find products, to only find its own products. So how could that be done? Well, in a lot of ways, but one of them would be to use, in this case, the global security methods, and that's something that you won't be able to do simply by using the configure method, which is just generally to restrict the access to the endpoints. So in this case, you would like to allow the access to your endpoints and implement some sort of logic at the service level, and that's why even these methods are not for the endpoints but are for the components that are one step further in the architecture, is for the services, for the managers, for the repositories, for the proxies, and it's just that you add some logic on your methods that could be integrated with your Spring security information at that time. That can be, for example, the information regarding who is authorized, who is authenticated, and who is authorized. That would be my first part of the answer, the part for your first question. And I hope actually that more of the answer would come with the new parts, with the next parts of the global security method mini series that I'm still working on. Second video will come soon on that, and probably more than this will be even clarified. At the moment you will see the pre-post annotations. That's what I'm expecting. And for the second part of your question, which is really interesting, that is, if performance is affected, well, I guess that it is affected. Unfortunately, I haven't actually read myself any study on this, on how much is affected. There is something more that happens there, so for sure there is something, it is affecting the performance somehow. But if we think about it anyway, in Spring generally aspects are everywhere, so aspected methods happen almost all the time. So I would say that it shouldn't be something that we really care that much about, because it's something that we are anyway very transparent about what happens behind Spring all the time. Sometimes we know part of it, but there are many times in which we are doing things in which we don't even know how many aspects are there and what are they doing. And I would say that if performance really matters, you should do some performance tests to see if this really affects that much your performance. Maybe you can observe something in a specific example. You have created an application and you observe that by adding the security methods, the performance is dramatically decreased. Then you can do some performance tests and maybe find another way to implement your business logic by using some other approach that doesn't affect that much the performance. But honestly, I didn't have any problem until now like that. And as I've said also, again, I will say it again, I didn't read that much of statistics or studies about how much performance is affected by these methods. I expect again to be the performance a little bit affected, because again it's logical, you do something more, so it must be that it is affected, but it shouldn't be that much that you would not use this in general cases, in general use case scenario. This is my opinion, and I hope that this answers at least a part of your question. And please let me know if you have other questions. Don't forget that you can leave me your questions in the comments. You can find me on LinkedIn and Twitter as well, and you can ask me the questions, and I'm very happy to answer by creating separate videos and uploading them on my channel. Thank you very much again, and stay tuned.